This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. Kanawha Valley Arena, Virginia's cowboy town, hosting an array of events from Civil War reenactments to diesel truck pulls. More information online at virginiarodeo.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamit.doitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and welcome to Senator Ralph Northam. Really appreciate your being with us. You've been serving in the Senate, and now you are seeking another office right in the middle of your Senate term. So we appreciate your being on and want to have you tell our viewers why you're running for Lieutenant Governor.
Well, thank you so much, David, for having me this morning. And you know, a lot of people ask that question. I've been in the Senate since 2008, and I think we've been able to get some good things done. Obviously, my background is in health care. I'm a physician, so I worked on the restaurant smoking ban back in 2008 and 2009, and we've done a lot of work with our student athletes with concussions, making it safer for them to participate in sports. And you know, I've really enjoyed my experience in representing the 6th District, which is Norfolk, a little bit of Virginia Beach, the Eastern Shore, which is where I'm from, and then Matthews County. But you know, what we've seen in the last couple years is this social agenda that has rolled into Richmond, the assault on women's reproductive health, and the infamous ultrasound mandate bill that I've worked so hard to fight against, and so we've kind of lost direction. And so I think it's real important that we get Virginia back on track. And the things that matter to Virginians as we cross the state and listen to a lot of people, still the economy and jobs. I mean, people are still hurting out there. They're doing what they can to keep their jobs. Some have lost their jobs. They want to keep their homes, educate their children. You know, we need to focus on things like a world-class education system, making sure that all Virginians have access to quality health care. As you know, I've worked hard on the environmental issues to clean up the Chesapeake Bay. And then this past year, I think one of the things that I think was great for Virginia, and it was really a bipartisan effort, but really an economic driver for the Commonwealth, and that was the transportation package. And you know, and that started with Governor McDonald's package, and to his credit, we desperately needed to do something about our transportation. He put a package on the table. It wasn't perfect, but you know, through compromise and working with both sides of the aisle, we were able to put about $1.3 billion with a B of new revenue that we haven't had since 1986 when Governor Belials was in office. So, you know, so we've been able to do some good things. But you know, I've been in the Senate for 6 years. I have great relationships, and I just want to do what's best and move Virginia forward.
Well, as our viewers should know, and hopefully do know, as Lieutenant Governor, one presides over the Senate. That's 2 months of the year. If you are elected Lieutenant Governor, what thoughts, plans, ideas do you have for how you would spend some of the time in those other 10 months? Of course, acknowledging it is not necessarily a full-time job, the lieutenant governor's job.
Right. Well, there are a lot of things that we can work on, a lot of challenges that we have. And as you said, the lieutenant governor, a lot of people ask sometimes, well, what's the lieutenant governor do? And the lieutenant governor does preside over the Senate. And Lieutenant Governor Bolin has done a wonderful job. He welcomes people into the Senate chamber and just it runs a very efficient Senate, I think. So he has some big shoes to fill, and I look forward to doing that. And as most people may know, in the event of a tie, and right now there are 20 Republicans and 20 Democrats, the lieutenant governor breaks the tie. So it's actually a very important position to have in the Commonwealth. So, and that's, our session takes place during January and February, and then we're in the off session or off season, if you will. So a couple of things that I have been working on and will continue to work on, and the first is regarding health care and the Medicaid expansion. The Medicaid expansion will provide coverage to about 400,000 hardworking Virginians. What has happened, the cost of health care have risen a lot faster than people's salaries, so there are Virginians out there who are working but can't afford health care coverage. And where they don't have coverage, they receive their care in the emergency room. And there's a time and place for the emergency room, but it's not for preventive care, education, those types of things. So the Medicaid expansion, it literally is billions of dollars. It's federal money for the first 3 years. And if Virginia doesn't take advantage of that, other surrounding states will, to include Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Florida. They have all opted in for the Medicaid expansion. So if Virginia doesn't take advantage of that, we're literally throwing money right out the window. In addition to being an economic driver for Virginia, it's a quality of life issue. I mean, people need health care coverage. And one thing I would mention very quickly is that I'm a veteran. I served 8 years in the Army. I served during Desert Storm, took care of wounded soldiers, and about 30,000 of those 400,000 Virginians that I just mentioned are veterans that are returning from Afghanistan and Iraq. And so the least that we can do is make sure that those that are fighting, risking their lives for our freedom, we need to make sure that they have access to health care and that their families have access. So I'll be working very hard on the Medicaid expansion, which I've written the language for it with some good reforms for Medicaid, and it's just something that I think in a bipartisan approach, both parties feel that it's important to move forward with that. So that needs to happen. The second area that I feel very strongly about is education. And our future is our children, and we need to make sure that they have a world-class education. And that certainly includes K through 12. It includes our community college system, colleges, and universities. But one of the things that I have always been an advocate for and worked a lot with Governor Kane on was pre-K education. And I can just tell you as a parent and as a pediatric neurologist, there's a tremendous learning potential in the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5-year-old child's brain. And I like to make the point that if my family has the means to send our children to pre-K and another family doesn't, that's what starts the gap between the haves and the have-nots. And as you know, David, if children aren't reading by the 3rd grade, there's a much higher chance that they're going to end up in prison. So it's one of those things you can either pay for it now or you can pay for it later. And then finally, just as we're coming out of this recession, hopefully, we encourage all of our high school students to go to college, but not all students are destined to go to college. So we need to make sure that we really put more emphasis on vocational and technical training so that students are prepared to enter the workforce when they finish high school. So those are a couple areas that I will work on during the off season.
Sounds like that would keep you busy.
Yes, sir.
I think it would. Our viewers hopefully know that there is a Medicaid commission
Right.
that's meeting here during the summer and the fall in preparation for perhaps bringing some recommendation to the next General Assembly.
Yes.
So that's in the works and looking for for some reforms perhaps that could be made that would then give some of those who don't have comfort some comfort in expanding Medicaid.
Absolutely, and you know, this shouldn't be a political issue. It should really be what's in the best interest of Virginians. And you know, the Affordable Care Act, there's some people that aren't in favor of that, but that's here to stay. And this Medicaid expansion is part of the Affordable Care Act. And again, it's federal money for the first 3 years. After 3 years, it's 90% federal money, 10% state. So it's still a pretty good deal for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And it will provide, the estimates are 30,000 plus new jobs for Virginia in healthcare for providers, nurses, social workers, that type of thing. So it's something we need to move forward with.
Let me ask you about an issue, and you were here when it most recently occurred, and that is the redistricting.
Yes.
There are some Virginians, I suppose, who are very much satisfied with the way the redistricting is handled. There are others who are saying that there should be a better process. Do you have any thoughts, again, as a senator and as a potential lieutenant governor, about the redistricting and the way we do it in Virginia?
Yes, sir, and that's a great question. And as you know, and the viewers probably know, every 10 years, the year that ends in a 1, we redraw the lines. And each year, I have been a co-patron for a nonpartisan redistricting commission. In other words, let's take the politics out of redrawing the lines, because it really favors incumbents. And just to make a point of that, when I ran in 2007, there were 100 delegate races and 40 Senate races. There were only 17 that were competitive. And so that's just not what democracy is all about. So each year we propose a nonpartisan redistricting plan. It always gets passed out of the Senate, and then, as we say, it catches a bit of a fever down on the House end, and they've just never been in favor of it. But you know, I would ask the viewers to really, when people want to run for office, ask them how they feel about redistricting. And I would hope that they would support a nonpartisan redistricting plan. Let's take the politics out of it as best we can.
You know, we will take this occasion to remind our viewers that not only are there candidates for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, but they're candidates for all 100 seats in the House. Some are competitive, as you said, and some are not, but it's a good chance for voters to be talking with those who are running and ask them about this issue and about other issues of concern.
That's absolutely right. And there are 100 delegates, and that's they will be all up for re-election this year, and then in 2015 will be the next cycle for senators. So hopefully the voters out there will pay attention and ask good questions.
You know, another question I wanted to ask you about is the way we elect judges in Virginia. And the judicial process in Virginia, some thinks it is fine just as it is, others thinks there should be some reforms. As our viewers do know, we're not one of the states where we directly elect judges, but we elect the legislators then who appoint the judges. Have you reflected on that issue? Do you have any thoughts about whether that issue's good as it is or whether it should have some changes?
Well, I think anything that we deal with, David, there's always room for improvement. But I have looked at other states and the states that elect their judges. You know, there's a tremendous amount of politics involved in that,
absolutely.
a tremendous amount of
Yes.
money that changes hands. And so I wouldn't want to go in that direction. The way we do it in Virginia, I think we have very good judges. My father, by the way, was a judge in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and my grandfather as well. So I think we've had, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but
Right.
I think we have put good judges on the bench. But there is still some politics involved in it, and you know, as best we can, we need to stay away from that. And at the end of the day, really, we need to put the best people on the bench, because that's what Virginia deserves.
You know, I guess the attempts at reforms that the General Assembly has made has been more along the lines almost of redistricting, you might say, but to have a commission that would then recommend to the General Assembly
Right.
the judges. So that may be coming up, and you may have a chance as senator or as lieutenant governor to weigh in on that issue.
Well, certainly something we'll keep an eye on.
Yes. You know, another issue in Virginia is that most everyone from time to time seems opposed to centralized government, but when that comes up, people are talking about the other side of the Potomac, or Washington. But when you come back to Virginia, an issue that sometimes is a little bit divisive is that so-called Dillon rule,
Yes, sir.
which means that localities don't have power unless it's directly granted to them by the General Assembly. And so, in one sense, we have centralized government here in Virginia, that the General Assembly is the one that says, yes, you may, or no, you may not. In your role as senator or potential lieutenant governor, do you have any thoughts about that Dillon rule, any changes that ought to be made?
Well, again, David, you know, there's always room for improvement, but the purpose of the Dillon rule is to have consistency across the Commonwealth. And we, you know, try in many different ways through legislation to give some of the localities options to do different things. But for the business community and schools, and I mean, you could go right down the list, I think it's still important to continue having that consistency throughout the state. And as you just told the viewers, that is something that comes up every year. And
Right.
it's almost, you know, you used the term opening up a can of worms. If you dig into it too deeply, we might have more problems than we have now. So I don't have any intentions of changing the Dillon rule, but I'm certainly open for discussion on it.
Let me ask you about a potential ethics commission. I was looking back at some articles that I had seen, and one written by a gentleman who's no longer a lobbyist here in the General Assembly. John Stone from down in Hampton Roads wrote one about the need for an ethics commission years ago. When he wrote that, the attention had to do with lobbyists in Washington. In recent weeks, we've had some concerns raised in Virginia more about elected officials than directly about lobbyists. Have any thoughts about any reforms, again, in your role as a senator now, or if you serve as lieutenant governor, of what should be done with regards to any ethics reforms, ethic commission, or whatever?
Well, I think what has happened and has been in the news for the last couple of months has been unfortunate for Virginia. It's been an embarrassment, and you know, there's just really no reason that elected officials, public servants, should be given special perks, and it's not what Virginia deserves. And you know, we saw this happening back in 2010, and you probably remember back then Delegate Ward Armstrong and I introduced legislation to put more teeth in ethics reform. I actually teach ethics, medical ethics, at the medical school, so it's something that I've always been interested in and have a background in. And that particular bill would have, again, I think, given some good improvements with our code of ethics in politics in Virginia, and it passed in the Senate and was defeated in the House. But you know, I think what has happened in the past few months is just another sign that we really need to address that. And so one of the things that our ticket has pledged, Terry McCullough, Mark Herring, and myself, is that no elected official or their family should take gifts over $100. And that a commission should be established that will be able to provide subpoenas, to provide penalties in the event that our elected officials break our code of ethics. And so I think what the viewers will see, and I think with good cause and good reason, is that there will be numerous pieces of legislation introduced in the 2014 session so that, again, we can make sure that our elected officials are held accountable and aren't taking special perks. And again, that's what Virginians deserve.
You know, there's been some, I would say, a little bit of disagreement about whether to have a special session here in 2013 or wait until 2014. You mentioned 2014. Is that what the process that you think should take place?
Yeah, so because these things take some time, and what we use the term vetting, and it needs to be a bipartisan effort. So Republicans and Democrats need to come together, sit down at the table, and really come up with some good reform. And so that doesn't happen overnight. And so a lot of folks, including myself, Mark Herring just came out with a plan. Lieutenant Governor Bolin has come out with a plan. So different people are bringing different ideas to the table. We'll continue to discuss that. And then in the 2014 session, I think we'll be ready to come up with some good reform.
Are there other issues? We don't want to let our time get away, and there's another issue perhaps that you'd want to comment on. I don't know if it would be on home and community-based services and about elder care, or if it would be about consumer loans or utility rates, or any of those strike a note with you, or other issues that you'd want to speak to our viewers about.
Well, they all do, and we have so many important issues and challenges in the Commonwealth, and again, I look forward to continuing to serve Virginians. The environmental issues are very important to me, David. I grew up on the Chesapeake Bay, so I have worked hard over the last 6 years to do things. We've brought the blue crab population back. We're working on oyster restoration. We're upgrading our septic systems around the Chesapeake Bay, so making some great improvements. Tremendous asset for the Commonwealth of Virginia. People make their livings on the bay. The quality of life is important, so I'll continue to do that. And then the other thing is a physician. I mentioned early in the session the attack on women's reproductive health. We need to look at Virginia as a business. It needs to be all-inclusive. We need to welcome people to Virginia, to include the LGBT community. So, we need to stop the social agenda. Legislators shouldn't be telling women what they should and shouldn't be doing with their bodies. They shouldn't be discriminating against the LGBT community. We need to welcome people to Virginia. As a business owner, that's what you do. You have the light on that says, we're open for business. Welcome to our Commonwealth of Virginia.
Do you foresee, Senator Northam, in the closing weeks here of the campaign, a time that there will be a lieutenant governor's debate? There's been something in the news about that. Might happen, might not happen, back and forth. What's it looking like?
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's important for the voters to know, where the candidates stand on the issues, to be able to contrast one candidate's views with the other. So we have 4 debates scheduled. There'll be one in Hampton Roads, one in Blacksburg, one in Richmond, and one in Northern Virginia. And I don't have the exact dates off the top of my head, but I look forward to debating my opponent.
And probably our viewers could find those dates as they come closer on your website. We're going to put up for you and for others whom we have the opportunity to speak with during this election cycle, the website. So if it hasn't aired already, I know they'll be putting it up on the screen here in the closing minutes so that viewers could go to that website to get that kind of information and to keep up on other issues that you may be speaking out on.
Yes, sir. Our website is northamforlg.com, and we try to provide updated information and keep the viewers up to date on what we're doing, where we're going to be, and when the debates are going to be, etc.
Now, have you had occasion yet to meet your opponent in this election?
No, sir, I haven't. I've just, I've seen him on the TV and heard some of the things that he's said. And again, I look forward to meeting him in person and debating him on the issues that are important to Virginians.
And we will tell our viewers that we're having this conversation early in the morning on August 8th. And so by the time they would see this show just a little bit later, it may be that the two of you have met. So if they say, oh, I know they've met, then the reason you made that comment is today here in Richmond is the 8th of August.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And not that long before the election would be coming up. And so we want to end the program not only with thanking you, Senator Northam, for speaking to our viewers, but also to encourage our viewers, if they're not registered to vote, to get registered. There's time on up between now and early October to register. And then, of course, once they're registered, to vote in November.
Yes, sir. This is as we say in Virginia, all these elections have important consequences, and the election's on November the 5th. So I encourage everybody to vote.
Thank you very much, Senator Northam, for being on This Week in Richmond.
Yes, sir. Thank you, David.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. Kanawha Valley Arena, Virginia's cowboy town, hosting an array of events from Civil War reenactments to diesel truck pulls. More information online at virginiarodeo.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.